The Plum in the Golden Vase, Chongzhen version of the Embroidered Portrait, Chapter 57. The Book of Marriage and the Happy House of 1,000 Gold. The opera Diolan smiles and replies with anger. The poem says, "The wild temple has stone walls and niches all over Chue Wei. The former Buddha is no longer discernible. His body is covered with berry moss. Only the ancient palace remains, and the world-honored one has become ashes. If you hear a dragon or an elephant crying, it is enough to make those who believe it mourn. The public is leading the soldiers, and he is shouting and screaming. I know that there are many trees, but they are leaning against the lotus platform. All heavens will rejoice, and ghosts will have no suspicion. It is said that there has always been a Yang Fuzhen temple in Dongbing Prefecture, Shandong Province. It was built in the second year of Emperor Wu of Liang Dynasty and was founded by the ancestor Wenhui. Why is it called Wenhui Patriarch? Because when the ancestor was a child, he was only 7 or 8 years old. He had a brother who was serving in the army. He couldn't hear from him and didn't know whether he was alive or dead. His mother's overthinking child often cries at home. Suddenly one day, the child asked his mother, "Mom, our family can survive in such a peaceful world. So why do we shed tears all the time?" "Mom, you said you can share your worries with us," I said. "Kid, how do you know? Since your old man passed away, your eldest brother went to the border to become a commander. For 4 or 5 years, there has been no letter. I don't know whether he is alive or dead. Please teach me how to survive," said. Then he started crying again. The child said, "It's so difficult to wait for a long time. Mom, where is my brother now? Isn't it good for us younger brothers to go out morning and evening to catch my brother and ask for a letter to reply to you?" Then, the mother-in-law cried at one end and laughed at the other, and said, "You idiot, if your brother only has a distance of 1,200 miles, he can go straight to the land of Liaodong. He can go here for more than 10,000 miles. Even a good man can walk 4 or 5 miles. The month has just arrived. How did you get to your home?" The child said, "Well, if I am in Liaodong, I will not be in the sky. I will go to find my brother and come back." I saw him putting on his shoes. After tying it, I straightened the straight hair, bowed to my mother-in-law, and left in a hurry. The mother-in-law didn't respond to her calls and couldn't catch up, which made her even more depressed. There were also neighbors, mothers-in-law and women who came to try and persuade me, saying, "My child is so young. How can I go so far? I will go back in the morning and evening." Therefore, my mother-in-law sat there in silence with tears in her eyes, watching the red sun set in the west. The mother-in-law looked out and saw a small child coming in the dark shadow in the distance. The mother-in-law said, "I rely on the sky, the earth, and the 3 lights of the sun and the moon. If my youngest son comes, my idea of practicing vegetarianism will not be in vain." I saw the Wenhui ancestor suddenly kneel down in front of me and said, "Mom, are you still awake? We have gone to Liaodong to look for my brother and ask for a safe letter from home." The mother-in-law said with a smile, "My dear, it's just a good idea that you don't go, so that I don't have to worry about you. Just don't panic." He coaxed me to go back and forth 10,000 miles day and night. Mom, don't you believe it?" He took off his bag and took out the letter from Ping'an. It was indeed written by his brother. He took out another sweatshirt and took it back to be starched and washed. It was also sewn by my mother-in-law, and it was accurate to every detail. Therefore, it stirred up the neighborhood and called it Wenhui. In the future, when he leaves the secular world and becomes a monk, he will be called Elder Wenhui. Sure enough, he has superb morals and great supernatural powers. He once swallowed 2 liters of iron needles in front of Emperor Shihu of Huzhou, and took out 3 relics from the top of his head in front of Emperor Wu of Liang. Therefore, we ordered to build Yang Fuzhen Temple as the incense courtyard of Wenhui Patriarch, which cost an unknown amount of money and food. Exactly, the divine monk is born with great supernatural powers, and the holy master is revered and holy. I don't expect that time flies, and things change. After the ancestors passed away thousands of times, some of the masters who were skinny and fleshy disappeared one by one. There are only a few tired monks who support their wives, eat soju, and do nothing. In a few days, the cassocks were pawned, the bells and chimes were pawned, and the rafters, bricks and tiles in the palace were exchanged for wine and eaten. The rain and wind blew. the Buddha statues fell over, and the place was desolate and desolate, turning the bell and drum dojo into a desolate place of smoke and decaying grass. 30 or 40 years. That one is willing to support the weak and uplift the weak. I don't want to have a Taoist elder who was originally from the West Indian country, because he admired Tsinghua University in China. He traveled from Liuxie and Xingqiuhai for 8 or 9 years before arriving in China. When I came to Shandong after a long journey, I saw Zhuoxi in this dilapidated temple, facing the wall for 9 years without saying a word. He was really like this. There is no barrier of words in Buddhism, so we must work hard to find good concentration. Suddenly one day I had an idea and said, this temple has collapsed into a state of disgrace. It would be a pity for these stupid dogs and bald donkeys to stop eating and drinking and turn this ancient Buddhist monastery into a bloody mess. To this day, if we don't make the decision, who will take the lead? If we don't take the lead, who will? Let's set up a banquet here. Seeing that the temple is in ruins, he has the idea of rebuilding it. If he can advocate for the Lord, we will have to go and take a look. Disciples and grandsons, beat the bells and drums, gather the people, and go to the hall to preach this idea. How can the elder dress up? But see, the Zen clothes on his body were stained with blood, and his devil-ring ears were made of gold. The tin stick in his hand is as bright as a mirror, and 108 pearls shine brightly in the sun. Open the cash rope on the road to enlightenment, and even ordinary people will wake up from their dreams. He has swollen eyebrows, cyanotic hair, and copper bell eyes. He is said to be an old holy monk from the West. After the elder finished preaching, he asked the traveler to take the 4 treasures of the study and write an essay. Good elder, it is really an ancient Buddha and Bodhisattva who has appeared. So he left the crowd, put on his Zen shoes and a bamboo hat, and ran straight to Simon King's house. Simon King said goodbye to Earl Ying, went to Wu Yunyang's room, told Earl Ying about recommending scholars, and then said, "We went to Tokyo the day before yesterday, and many relatives and friends came to hold a candle with us. Now there are many who are missing. I'll have to drink to answer him. I'll finish this matter when I have free time today." Then he called Dan and told the comprador to get some food. He also ordered the boys to go separately to invite everyone. While pulling Yunyang, she walked to Li Ping'er's room to see Brother Guan. Li Ping'er caught it with a smile and asked her breasts to carry Brother Guan out. I saw only sparse eyebrows, just like powder makeup, and a happy smile, straight into Yunyang's arms. Yunyang took her hand, hugged her and said, "My son, you are such a good boy. When you grow up, you will definitely be smart and smart." Then she said to the child, "Son, when you grow up, you will be able to take care of my mother." Li Ping the son said, "What did you say to me? If your son grows up and asks for an official position, he will first give it to his superiors. That phoenix crown and harem will surely go to his mother first." Simon King then said, "Son, when you grow up, you will earn a civil service. Don't follow the example of my father, who has a Spanish background. Although he is interested, he doesn't respect him very much." As he was saying this, Pan Jinlian didn't want to hear it outside, and she was angry. His heart rose, and he cursed. "You are a shameless, stinking prostitute who has weakened your spleen, but you know how to raise a son. You have never passed 3 yellow plums, and for summer solstice, and you have never grown up to 15 or 16 years old and passed the test as a child. He went to school, was still a fool. He was raised here with King Yama. Why did he become an official when he saw it? Why did he give the old lady a title, you?" While she was chattering, muttering and scolding, she saw Dian coming in, calling Wu Niang and saying, "Where is Dad?" Pan Jinlian scolded her, "You weird thief with a sharp mouth. Where is your father from Shao? Why did you come to my house? He has his own great-grandmother and old lady with 5 official titles, and 8 treasures and 5 tripods to support him. There, ask me for help." Then Dian knew it was not the way, so he left after looking at Liu Niang's room. Walking to the door of the room, he coughed and said to Simon King, "Ying's second father is in the hall." Simon King said, "Ying's second father sent him there. What did he do?" Dan said, "Dad, you'll find out when you go out." Simon King had no choice but to leave Yunyang and Li Ping'er and walk outside. Seeing the Earl, He was about to ask questions when he saw that the Taoist elder who was recruiting for marriage had already arrived at the head of Jin Ping Mei. He shouted loudly, "Amitabha, is this the head of the family of Mr. Simon?" The steward in charge informed me and said, "Support Guizi, protect land's son, pray for good fortune, pray for longevity." Tokyo fundraising. The elder asked to see him. It turned out that Simon Kingping was a man who used to spend money and was a newly elected official. He was very happy and wanted to do some good things to protect his children. The boys knew it well and did not make it difficult. They went in to report to Simon King. Simon King said, "Let him come in and take a look." After a while, he invited the elder into the flower hall, made an inquiry, and said, "The poor monk was born in the West Indian country, traveled to Beyondling, Tokyo, and Zhuo Shizhen in Yangfu. The temple has been facing the wall for 9 years, and it is quite clear that the temple has collapsed and the Lin Palace has collapsed." The poor monk remembered that as a disciple of the Buddha, he should do his best for the Buddha, so the poor monk came up with this idea the day before yesterday. "Dear fathers, when you feel sorry for the ruins of this temple, you also have a good conscience and want to make a decision with this temple." At that time, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have already made a sworn alliance. If a woman is happy to give up a stately Buddha statue with money, the owner will win the title of Yu Lansen, who will be dignified and beautiful. She will be admitted to the imperial examination early in the future, and Yinzi will be granted the title of wife. Therefore, she specially knocks on the high door and asks Lao Tan to open her hair, heart, achieve good results. He unfolded the brocade handkerchief, took out the book of fortune raising, and handed it over with both hands. Unexpectedly, those words had already moved Simon King's heart, and he happily accepted the book and asked the boy to watch tea. Opening the book, I saw the following. Fu opened the Xiang sect with the White Horse Camel Sutra, and Shu Teng started the sect by developing the Dharma. All the monks on the earth have taken refuge in the Buddha. All the 3,000 worlds are orchid and solemn. See how the ruins turned into a famous mountain and scenic spot. If you are not compassionate and willing to give up, how can you call a Buddhist a benevolent person? Today there is the Yangfu Zen Temple, the ancient Buddhist ashram, and the blessed land of burning cultivation. It was founded by Emperor Wu of Liang Dynasty and the founder of Wenhui Temple. The regulations are magnificent, just like the gold paving the ground of the solitary garden. The carved towers are exquisite, vaguely like the white jade steps of Chiwansh. The high pavilion is in the sky, and the sandalwood energy reaches directly to the sky. The layers are on the ground, and the main hall can accommodate thousands of Zen monks. The two towering wings are full of palaces and blue sky. The corridors are clean, and they are indeed as beautiful as the cave sky. At that time, the bells and drums were preaching that the Tao was the Buddha's kingdom in the world. Only this jade streams to chew, but it was also like the world of humans and heaven. Who knows that as time goes by, things change in an instant. The reckless monk indulged in drunkenness and violated the rules. The stupid Taoist was lazy and greedy for sleep, and could not clean up. He gradually became lonely and cut off his disciples. He became desolate and rarely looked up to him. At the same time, it is crowded by birds and mice, and it can be shaken by wind and rain. Buildings are crumbling, one by one, two by three, supporting the whole plan. Walls are crumbling, day after day, year after year, with no one to stand up. Pick up the red lattice to simmer wine and tea. Hug the pillars together and exchange them for salt and rice. The wind blows, and the gold of our hat disappears, and the rain hits Amitabha and turns it into dust. Sigh, Jin Bai Kungshuan, once become Guanmang Jingzhen. Although there are successes and failures, there must be peace in the end. Fortunately, there were Taoist elders who were so pious that they could not bear to see the Brahma Palace in ruins. Make great aspiration and count out Atanana everywhere. I am willing to be compassionate and full of compassion. The beams, pillars and rafters, no matter how big or small, are always inscribed with your surname. Silver and cloth coins, regardless of whether they are rich or not, are put into the cabinet and marked with your name. Relying on the power of the Buddha, blessings, wealth and longevity will last for hundreds of years. Relying on the Tagalon mirror, all fathers, sons and grandsons will be well-paid and high-ranking officials. The melons are us, and the three locust trees, and 5 osmanthus trees stand tall. The gates are full of flowers, and the Jinfuqianshan is brilliant. Whatever you seek, may you be blessed with good luck. As soon as the sparse articles arrive, everyone will break their heart. Please be careful. After Simon King looked at it, he put it on the table respectfully and said to the elder, "To be honest, although I am not a wealthy family, I still have tens of thousands of properties and hold a military position. I don't want to do something that I am so old and have never given birth to a son." Good results. Last year, the 6th wife gave birth to a child, and everything was enough. I sent it to my friend as a gift, and because I saw the temple was in ruins, I really had the idea of giving up my money to help build it. Gu, you dare to refuse. Holding the wonderful pen of Tohao, while hesitating, Earl Ying said, "Brother, since you have such a good intention to make a wish for your nephew, why not do it alone? It is also a small matter." Simon King held the pen and smiled and said, "We are weak. We are weak." The Earl said again, "A very few can help 1,000. Simon King smiled again. "We are weak. We are weak." The elder said, "Old Tan Yu is not a poor monk who talks too much. As a Buddhist, as long as we give up according to circumstances, we will not force others to do anything." In addition, relatives and friends asked Tan Yu to brag. "The teacher's size is not enough, so I just wrote 500 tales." The elder put down the pen and asked for thanks. Simon King added, "Every one of my internal officials, eunuchs, and prefecture and county warehouse inspectors is in love with me. I will take the book to them tomorrow and ask them to write. Those who write will not be limited to 300, 200, and 150. 10. Guan King and the teacher accomplished this good thing. That day, I left the elder Suzai and saw him off. Exactly, compassionately do good things for the family, protect the parents' hearts from blessings, and eliminate disasters. Simon King saw the elder off and went to the hall, where he sat down with Ying Boju and said, "I was just about to send someone to invite you. You came just in time. I went to Tokyo the day before yesterday, and thanked all my relatives and friends for drinking with me. Today I arranged a small drink to entertain everyone, and asked my second brother to be here with us. But I didn't expect to meet this elder and fool around for a while." The Earl said, "What a good elder. He must be a virtuous man." While he was talking, even I was moved and became a donor. Simon King said, "When did you become a donor? When did you write the petition?" Ying Boju smiled and said, "Brother, you don't know, in the Buddhist scriptures, the first level is the heart giving, the second is the dharma giving, and the third is the material giving. Am I just instigating this, and not a heart giving?" Simon King said with a smile, "Second brother, I'm afraid you don't mean it." The two clapped their hands and laughed, and Ying Boju said, "I'll wait for the guests here. I have something important to discuss with my sister-in-law." Simon King said goodbye to the Earl and went to the inner courtyard. He saw Pan Jinlian nagging and not picking up anything. Unconsciously, she was troubled by sleepiness and sneezed a few times. She went to the room and fell asleep on the ivory bed. Li Ping'er was crying for the child again, and she sat on the floor in the room with the nurse and the maid to watch the official. Only Wu Yunyang and Sun Zui watched the preparation of the meal. Simon King went to sit in front of him and told him in detail about the Taoist priest's fundraising and his petition. He also told Ying Boju's jokes. Everyone was happy and laughed for a while. Wu Yunyang was a serious person after all. She said a few words calmly, but Simon King hit the nail on the head. It was just like this. A virtuous wife always wakes up at the cockcrow, and her gentle words are often like medicine. Yunyang said, "Brother, you are so lucky to have a child. You have good thoughts. It is a blessing for my family to make many good friends. But I am afraid that he has few good thoughts and many bad thoughts. Brother, in the future, you should do less things like not having a proper wife, not being greedy for money, and being lustful. It would be better for the child." Simon King laughed and said, "You are jealous again. You don't know that there is yin and yang in the world, and men and women naturally cooperate. Those who have affairs in this life are destined in the previous life, and their names are recorded in the marriage book. Can it be said that they are still talking nonsense in this life? Is it because of the evil? I heard that the Buddha in the West heaven only wants gold to pave the ground, and the 10 palaces in the underworld also need some paper money to beg. I only need to spend all my property on charity. Even if I rape Chang'e, have an affair with Chinu, kidnap Zhu Fiqiang, and steal the daughter of the Queen Mother of the West, it will not reduce my wealth. Yu Niang laughed and said, a dog eating hot shit is supposed to be sweet. How can blood fall into the teeth? While laughing, Wang Guzi and Su Guzi came in with a box, asked Yu Niang about her, bowed to Simon King, and said, Dad, you are at home. Yu Niang gave way to sit. The readers heard that Su Guzi was not a monk since childhood. When she was young, she married a husband and sold steamed cakes in front of Guangqing Temple. Unexpectedly, her business was shallow. She flirted with the monks and boys in the temple, made 4 or 5 of them. She often received steamed buns as vegetarian offerings, and she was given money to buy flowers and cloth from hell to bind her feet. Her husband had no idea. Later, her husband fell ill and died. She became a nun because she was familiar with Buddhism. She only visited the homes of scholars and wives, and took charge of chanting sutras and praying for the dead. She also invited women who were not making progress and wanted to have affairs with men. She heard that Simon King's family was rich and had many concubines, so she wanted to use some of their money to help him. So she frequently visited Simon King. There is a song that says it well, nuns are born with bald scalps, and monks are busy every night. The 3 bald heads look like the master, the senior brother, and the junior brother. But where are the symbols in the bed? Zhu sat down and opened the small box, saying, we are not filial, so we can give the host some fruits for the Buddha as a new offering. Yu Niang said, if you want to come, just come, why bother you? Pan Jinlian was sleeping, and heard someone talking outside. She thought it was the previous scene, so she walked over to listen. She saw Li Pinger playing with a child in the room. Knowing that Wang Gu was here, she also wanted to discuss with her to bless Guanj, so they went to Yu Niang's room together. Everyone bowed and sat down. Seeing Li Pinger coming, Simon King told her about the Taoist elders' collection of donations and his family's donations to pray for Guanji's blessings. Unexpectedly, Pan Jinlian was annoyed, so she laughed, mumbling, and laughed. When Nun Zhu heard this, she stood up, clasped her hands and cried out, Buddha, old man, you are so kind and do good deeds. I am afraid you will live 1,000 years and have 7 sons, 5 sons, and 2 daughters. But I have one more thing to tell you. This cause and effect will not cost much, and you will gain immeasurable blessings. Hey, old donor, if you can do this merit, even if the old Gautama practiced Buddhism in the snowy mountains, the venerable Kasyapa spread his hair on the ground. The second patriarch threw himself on a cliff to feed tigers, where the ground was covered with gold for the lonely old man. It would not be as good as your merit. Simon King smiled and said, Auntie, please sit down and tell me in detail what merit you have, and I will do it. Nun Zhu said, our Buddha left behind a volume of the Dharani Sutra, which specifically encourages people to go to the Western Pure Land, because ordinary people with flesh eyes do not have faith in it. The Buddha preached this sutra to encourage you to concentrate on chanting Buddha's name, and finally go to the West, and never fall into reincarnation. The Buddha said it well. If someone recites this sutra or prints this sutra, copy it, and persuade 1 to 10 million people to recite it, and you will gain immeasurable blessings. Moreover, this sutra also contains the Protecting Children Sutra. If a family has boys and girls, they must make a vow from this point on, so that they can grow up easily and raise them, and disasters will go away and blessings will come. Now this set of sutras is now, but no one is printing and distributing them. Dad, you only need to spend some time and materials to print a few thousand volumes, bind them, and distribute them to all directions. That merit is really great. Simon King said, this is not difficult, but I don't know how many papers, bindings, and printings are needed for this volume of sutras. I need to have a detailed count before I can do anything. Zhu Guzi said again, Dad, you go and calculate it in detail. You only need to pay 9 taels of silver first, and ask the Sutra Workshop to print tens of millions of volumes, bind them, and then pay him back when the fruit is mixed. As they were talking excitedly, Chen Jingji wanted to talk to Simon King, and found under the shed. just when he happened to meet Pan Jinlian leaning against the railing and feeling annoyed. When he suddenly looked up and saw Jingxi, he was like a cat seeing fish and rice, and his melancholy of the day turned into spring breeze and harmony. When the two saw that no one was coming, they held hands and leaned against each other, smacking their lips. After playing with each other for a while, they were afraid that Simon King would come out and see them, so they didn't even mention the matter of settling accounts. His eyes were like mice guarding against cats, looking left and right. But there was no convenience for him to do anything, so he had to go out in a hurry. Simon King listened to what Zhu Yuzi said, and he felt kind again. He asked Diane to take the offering box, took out a silver envelope, and promised 30 taels, and gave it to Zhu Yuzi and Wang Yuzi. Let's go to the scripture workshop together and print 5,000 volumes of scriptures for me. After it's finished, I will settle the accounts with him. While he was talking, the book boy came to report in a hurry. All the guests have arrived. Wu Daju, Hua Daju, Si Zaida, Chang Jiji and others were indispensable. Simon King hurriedly dressed and went out to welcome them to the hall. He asked the servant to set up the table and invited everyone to sit in groups according to age. Soon, the rich fish, meat and fresh fruits were served. When drinking with friends, they forgot everything. Some guessed the number, some beat the drum, some told lies, some sang, and some played. They could not describe the youthful days and nights, and they could not describe the days and nights in the land of drunkenness. It is just like this. Autumn moon and spring flowers are everywhere, and the joyful things are the same at this time.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.